Hey everyone, Mike here from Steel Green Manufacturing, and today we're going to go over installing the Razor tracking system. We'll be going over installing this on your machine, whether it is a newer version around mid-24 and newer that has a fuse box panel behind the pad, and then we're also going to go over the installation process for units prior to that. Both are very simple and only requires a couple small tools and 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so installing this system on a 2024 mid-year and newer machine that has the fuse box panel behind the operator pad, you're gonna get the Razor tracker itself here that has the VHB tape on the back to install it, the harness which simply plugs and plays in line for power, and then the additional fuse to put in your fuse box to feed this system. On the mid-2024 and older machines, you'll get the same Razor tracker with the VHB tape on the back, and then the harness that fits those older machines that has a couple additional wires because we're going to pick up power off of the USB port on the left-hand side of the machine, and then you'll also receive an additional rocker switch that has 4 terminals because some of the older units just had 2, and you're going to need those extra ones to pick up power. Tools that you're going to need for this installation on either of these machines will be the small number 2 Phillips head screwdriver, a very thin flathead screwdriver. If you're having trouble finding something like that, I would recommend a eyeglass repair kit. You'll commonly find a real small flathead in those, and we'll be using that to release a terminal for a wire on the switch on your current setup. A pair of cutters here for the zip ties that we're going to use just to tidy up the wires after we're done installing these. Both harnesses, the ones for the 2024 newer fuse box style and the one like this for the prior ones with no fuse box, are going to have this purple connector that tees into the yellow wire of the harness. So this wire is only going to be utilized when you have a pressure control system, and you can identify that by the switches on the dash or this green harness. This is the only harness that has green loom on it, and it plugs into the brain box on the machines. Okay, so we'll go ahead and pull the cover off of our fuse box here. You got a couple main connectors here. You'll have power and ground fork terminal, and then our yellow wire, which has the special terminal that slips up into that rocker switch connector. All right, the red wire is going to go on the bottom right-hand corner of the fuse box, and the ground you'll place on the next available screw on the ground bar. If you have a machine that has a lot of attachments, you got a highly custom unit, it's loaded out, and you have all your ports being used already on your fuse box, you'll just simply utilize the 5 amp fuse that's already in there, because that's just solely on the USB circuit on the left hand side of the machine. So we can just take this screw loose here, piggyback on that, and stack this fork with that fork right there. So you'll just back that screw off and piggyback it off that 5 amp fuse if you have a machine with a full fuse box. So, all right, so once you get whichever terminal on the ground bar you're using for your black ground fork wire loosened, you're just gonna slip this behind the star washer there and the screw head. And then we can just keep that aligned like the other ones are and tighten that up. We'll just guide that wire right up and around, and we'll zip tie it in here in a few. The power connection goes right next to that. So there's a big washer in there. Get it behind the washers, and then your screwdriver on that. Tighten that one up. Okay, so now it's time to disconnect the switch from your pump on the dash, and to do so, we're just going to reach under and use our thumb to depress a tab that's on the back right-hand corner of that switch block, and then pull down gently. All right, so on your pump switch connector that we just unplugged from the dash switch for your pump, you'll see that there's 3 wires in there currently. We got a 4th port open for that 4th tab on the rocker switch. That's where we're going to slip in this yellow wire from behind. And you'll notice it's easier to see on these upper ones because there's no grease in them. These have dielectric grease just to help protect corrosion, but it's a rectangle slot, but there's a little step in it kind of on the bottom side. And that step, what that is it's a channel for this little barb on this wire. So the barb goes in that channel, so it'll click in from the back side. It will be terminal number, let me show you here. Terminal number 5. Turn this sideways so you can read the numbers here. Terminal number 5 is the one that we're going to slide the yellow wire into. So we'll just get that in position and place that in there. It'll go right in and click in, and it's retained and it won't come back out. Now it's ready to go back on the dash switch. Okay, so now we have the yellow wire installed, ready to plug this back up on the pump switch. You'll do so by just sliding it up there and then ensure that that locking tab on that back right-hand corner locks in. Now we can get our harness out and grab our razor device itself and get it mounted up to connect it here. If you look up under the right-hand corner of your dash in this flat area, there's a nice open area, and that's where we're going to peel off the 3M VHB tape cover. And then we're going to slide it up in here with the serial number that's on this to the sky. So it'll go in there just like this with the serial number pointing straight up to the sky. If it's going on an older machine that's been used and whatnot, you're going to want to clean this area up under here, and you can see it from the top, and you'll be able to read your serial number from the top too, down the gap that's in the joystick area. So we'll just simply slide this up here, and you can use your upper hand to kind of help guide it and get this in a position to where it's just level with the ground, and that serial number is to the sky. The wire can just drop down and around in between those two hose barbs. So you just want to press and stick that. It'll set up, and that will hold itself in there no problem with that VHB tape. Okay, so we can just kind of guide this wire down here, get a hold of your connector on the harness that we've already hooked up, and take the connector from the razor. It's a sealed connection, so plug that together. Then we can tuck this back in here, and we'll utilize some zip ties here in a few minutes to get that all tidied up and tight, and we'll pull these wires up too and get them all in a line and zip tie all that stuff. This connector, just zip tie it up out of the way. That's only utilized if you have a pressure control system, so it's kind of like a piggyback connector, so you just won't use that. Okay, so now we're ready to get our new 5-amp fuse that came with the kit and install that in the bottom right location where our power wire is connected, and reinstall our cover. So now that we have the cover installed again, we're good to hook up the battery, and we could throw some zip ties on the wires and make sure it's all clean. Okay, so on this model year piece of equipment, there's no fuse box, and it also has the pressure control system, so you'll get to see us installing that portion of the harness as well and using that. Also included in your kit is going to be a 4-terminal rocker switch. You're going to need these extra terminals. Some of the older models just had a 2-terminal switch. If you already have a 4-terminal, you just have an extra one to keep on the side. Okay, so we've got the machine parked, battery on the other side disconnected with a 1/2-inch wrench, and the first connections that we're going to work on are going to be the black and red, the long set black and red, and the short set. The long set is going to go and plug into this USB port on the back side. So on the back side, right down in here, I've loosened the speed bar knobs and allowed this bar to move all the way to the rear to give me kind of an access hole to reach right here. And then I can also take one hand and reach from under the underside here. Depending on what attachments you have on your machine and that sort of thing, you may have to also go at it from just under and behind the hydro tank plate and that sort of thing. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and hook up the black and red wires of our Razor harness. So to do that, you're gonna want to come over here to the back side of the USB port. This is the USB port that feeds through the left side of the machine. It's got slip-on connections. One is the ground wire, which you will see will just run right down to the chassis. That's the top one. So the top wire is your ground. That will pull off. And then the bottom wire is your power wire. Now, the wire is going to be a black and colored wire because the fuse holder, that gauge size, is a black wire. But it's got a fuse in line, so you'll know it's a power wire. You don't fuse a ground. So pull that off. Now we've got the power and ground disconnected from the back side of the USB port. We can feed in the long pair of black and red wires from our Razor harness and connect those. And we can just feed the long pair of black and red wires from our Razor harness. And then we'll come through the front here to the left of the key switch harness. I've got a hold of those wires now, and we can hook those up just like we had before. The ground terminal is the top connector. Slip that on. And the power terminal is the bottom one. That one. Okay, so now we got the power and ground hooked up. We're good to take our red wire that has a fuse holder and make that connection. That one. Then the ground wire here. And the ground wire from our harness. The blue ground in and the ground from the USB. There we go. Now the two red and the two black are both hooked up. Okay, all right, so that one's hooked up. Now our power and ground are hooked up, so everything else is hooked up on this except for the two yellow wires, which those are gonna come across the dash, and I'll walk around and we'll get these hooked up to the pump system. All right, so we're ready to disconnect this pump switch. There's a tab you're gonna depress on the rear right-hand corner with your thumb. Squeeze that and wiggle it. So this is the tab that I was pushing down with my thumb to release to unhook that from the dash switch. And then you can just kind of straighten it back out so it's ready to lock in again. This port number 5 already has a wire that we're going to have to pull out since this one has the green harness pressure control system. So in order to get that out, we have to take our flathead screwdriver and feed this down in there carefully to depress the tab. It locks that in. This is the little tab that I was bending down right there. That little barb is what I had to come down from the top and depress to get that to release. Now that we have it out, we can bring up our purple connector and hook that wire in to the purple. So it will still have power because we're piggybacking. All right, so now we take that yellow terminal and place it in number 5. And it'll only go in one way, so that'll snap in and be retained. And then we're good to reinstall this onto the dash switch. Okay, so now that we have the harness installed on the machine, the only thing left to do is grab the Razor device itself. It's ready to be plugged in to the harness, and then we can utilize this 3M VHB tape that's already on the back of it. Take a quick note of the serial number that's on here. You're going to need that during the registration process, but it will stay visible after installation, so no worry if you don't write that down or anything. So we can peel off that cover for the VHB tape, and where this is going to go is it's going to go with the serial number to the sky up here in this right hand corner of the dash. So if your machine's, this is the retrofit harness for older chassis, so if your machine's dirty, make sure you clean that area up under here really well. Maybe rub it down with some isopropyl alcohol, something that's going to dry and not leave residue, so that has the best adhesion. So you can just kind of feed this up through and reach from the top with your other hand, get a hold of it, square it up under there, and and stick it on, serial number straight to the sky, feed the wire down and in between those two hoses, and then it can just come across here and be ready to plug in to the harness. Now we can just utilize some of those zip ties to tidy up these wires, and you'll be all set to power on the machine after you reconnect the battery and check for a light out of the razor itself and confirm it has power. Well, thanks for checking out today's video on the razor installation process. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media or check out our website at steelgreenmfg.com.